Willie Steen's on his way to vote, he hopes. In the last election, he was one of thousands of black citizens stopped from voting when they were falsely tagged as criminals.
He went in a place to vote, and I was with my son, and it's about 40, 50 other people around, and I got up there to vote, and they told me that I was a convicted felony. I told the young lady that I never been arrested before.
Enthusiastic Americans like Willie can now vote early in the weeks before Election Day. Willie sued Governor Jeb Bush after Jeb's officials were caught playing games with the voter lists, dropping legal voters, especially black ones, who overwhelmingly vote for Democrats.
Hey, how you doing?
Moving right along.
Yes, we are.
This is as far as Willie got last time.
Sir, did you used to live at Valley Tree?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Will he be blocked yet again? We leave Willie in Tampa to go just past Disney World to Faith World. Here in Orlando, the faithful who believe they were cheated last time pray it won't happen again. In the last election, 1 million black votes were not counted.
The Reverend Jesse Jackson. You don't have to vote the way I vote. I shouldn't steal your vote. And in the name of democracy, the winner shouldn't lose, and the loser shouldn't win.
Jackson fears that the Republicans have some new plan to block the black vote, not just the fake felon scam used last time on Willie Steen.
You can't forget the stealing of your birthright. You can't forget the disenfranchisement of your vote. There are more Mr. Steens out there. And now you have a case of this as a guy who just may be a kind of biopsy, a kind of political biopsy of a cancer that is much more widespread than just one example.
100 miles away, in the riverside town of Jacksonville, we may have found the evidence of the plan Jesse Jackson fears, something called a caging list, which could capture black voters. This is a list of nearly 2,000 voters in the black neighborhoods of Jacksonville who appear to have errors in their mailing addresses. The list was specially prepared for George Bush's campaign.
There is no doubt in my mind that with your help, we'll carry Florida again and win a great victory on November the 2nd.
Every one of these has to be hand-entered.
We asked Ion Sancho why the Republicans might put together such a list. Sancho is a Democrat, but he's also one of the most respected and experienced of Florida's county elections supervisors.
The only thing that I can think of African-American voters listed like this, these might be potential individuals that will be challenged if they attempt to vote on Election Day.
American states allow political parties to place their people right inside the polling station, like this one in Jacksonville. They can point to a voter and challenge their right to vote. Voters will be turned away with provisional ballots, which are usually just thrown out. Political parties rarely use challenges because they can bring voting to a halt.
In Leon County, for example, we have not had one challenged voter in the 16 years that I've been the supervisor of elections. Because again, if you challenge voters, you really must do so with concrete, hard evidence, not your opinion. And this process can be used to slow down the voting process, to cause chaos on Election Day, and quite frankly, to discourage voters from voting.
Do the Republicans have a plan to launch thousands of challenges on November 2nd and bring voting in Florida's black Democratic precincts to a standstill?
This is the caging list, and this is where it was sent to the office of Brett Doster. He's the executive director of the George W. Bush for President campaign in Florida. Let's ask his team about it.
I asked Republican spokeswoman Mindy Tucker Fletcher if they had a strategy to challenge these black voters on Election Day.
I can't tell you right now. I'm not part of that strategy, but
okay.
this is This was not done in order to create a challenge list, as you, I think, were trying to get to. Understood a lot more of
But they accuse Democrats of registering voters illegally, so Republicans must counterattack.
So you're saying your poll workers will be instructed to challenge people to say they should have a provisional ballot?
Where it's stated in the law, yeah.
Are you worried that that'll gum up the voting procedures for legal
By
voters?
enforcing the laws?
Well, that's a good question.
I imagine even the people in line would want the laws applied.
The law appears to be applied in a curious way in Florida. Across the road from the Jacksonville voting station, I spied someone hiding away a camera in a black SUV with blacked out windows. He was disguised in a tourist uniform, complete with shorts, baseball cap, and open-toed sandals. He'd been filming every voter. I thought I'd say hello.
This isn't just a hobby. You're just not doing this volunteer.
No.
Okay, I didn't. Okay.
No. So I'm an investigator. This is my
So are you a licensed investigator? Or? So a professional agency then? It's not. You're not like some free. Just some guy who decided he's going to do something because
he remembered that his name was Doug, but he couldn't remember who he was working for. The local congresswoman had a suggestion.
The Republicans, once again, are trying to intimidate African American voters. This car have been here since the 18th in front of the supervisor's office all day, and they have been filming.
Back in Tallahassee, another election scam surfaced which could sabotage thousands of voter registrations. It targeted students with liberal views. Elections supervisor Ian Sancho discovered the scam struck close to home.
This, for example, is a copy of my stepdaughter's voter registration from Orlando, and it is clear that her own handwriting filled in blocks 2 through 15. Apparently, a petition form was placed over the top of a voter registration form. It purported to tell the citizen they were signing a petition to legalize medical marijuana. The citizen filled it in thinking that's what they were doing, and then after the voter had left, the individual fraudulently filled out lines 1, the party change, making them a Republican now, and then fraudulently signed it, and then turned the application over to the election administrator. This form changed the voter's registration from Tallahassee to Orlando. And if this voter had not known me and turned this information over to me, she may have been disenfranchised when she attempted to vote.
Is it a crime to misregister someone in that way?
It is a third-degree felony to do this. It is an illegal act.
And the Republicans now admit it was their operatives who collected these thousands of suspect registrations, though the party denies it committed fraud. Civil rights experts in Washington fear the threat to a free and fair election is severe and unprecedented. Ralph Nees is commander-in-chief of an army of 6,000 lawyers who will take up battle stations on Election Day to protect voters from dirty tricks.
This is the nerve center.
Right.
There'll be 56 of our field offices in the 17 states, and then there'll be 38 legal command centers where the majority of the lawyers will be. And there'll be a law student or lawyer at every precinct. But if there are real problems, we've got mobile traveling vans of lawyers who will go to the problem precinct to make the decision.
They'll keep their eyes open for mass challenges by poll watchers paid for by the Republican Party. It may be disruptive, but it's perfectly legal to challenge voters. But if you target the challenges at black districts like Jacksonville, you're breaking federal law.
You cannot target districts with respect to challenging voters if race is a consideration. Doesn't even have to be the major factor. You cannot target on the basis of race.
Thanks. Back in Tampa, Willie Steen finally gets to vote. But this happy ending was thanks only to Newsnight. The day before, he was still listed as a criminal felon. But when we turned up with cameras, his status magically changed to upright citizen who can vote unchallenged. But what about the thousands of others without TV cameras who will have to overcome the new tricks, caging lists, registration games, and more in the 2004 Battle of the Ballot?
Thank you, sweetie.
Great.
Greg Palast reporting there. I'm joined now from Tallahassee by Barry Richard, who led the legal team for the Bush-Cheney campaign 4 years ago before the Florida Supreme Court and is prepared to do the same this time round. Mr. Richard, can you explain first of all why it was necessary for the Bush-Cheney campaign to produce this challenge list of 2,000 potential voters in Jacksonville?
Well, I need to tell you that I had nothing to do with the list. I can tell you what my understanding is of what the list was, and that is that there is a concern on both sides, by Democrats and Republicans, because of a high level of suspicion arising out of the 2000 election, that there will be glitches and there will be people voting who are not properly eligible to vote. And my understanding is that this was not a list that was targeted at African American voters. It was not a list of individuals that was designed to disrupt voting procedures. It was an effort by persons, and I don't know what the connection was to the Republican Party, but it was an effort by persons supporting President Bush's re-election to determine whether many of the newly registered voters were truly eligible to vote in the areas in which they had been registered. Sure. And so what they did was they obtained lists of persons who had recently registered and compared them against the addresses that were included on the registration to see if they really lived there. And the list that was produced was a list of individuals who did not appear at the addresses that were included on the registration.
Sure, but you can understand that African Americans, as we heard from the Congresswoman there, think it is directed against them going back 4 years. There's a lot of bad feeling about this, and if they feel that they are being specifically targeted, not only is it illegal, it could lead to real problems on polling day, couldn't it?
Well, of course, anything could lead to problems. I suspect that the reason that there were so many African Americans on the list is because there was a major drive this year to register African Americans, and it was a very successful drive. So consequently, you're going to have a higher percentage of those who were registered who may have put down the wrong addresses than persons who have been on the books for some time. The only thing that I can tell you is that I'm lead counsel in the state of Florida for any litigation that occurs, and I certainly am not aware of any plan by the Bush campaign or the Republican Party to target any particular voters or to impede the ability of eligible voters to vote. Right. The only thing that...
What do you make then of Jon Sancho's point, the election supervisor in Tallahassee, where you're speaking to us from, that he says he is a Democrat, as we've said. Party politics, of course, plays a part in all this. But he says there's not been one challenge in the 16 years he's been there, and he fears chaos caused by a lot of challenges, perhaps from both sides, this time round. Do you think that could really happen?
Well, of course it could happen, but I don't anticipate it happening. I don't think either side wants to impede the ability for the votes to count. Keep in mind that that neither side knows who's going to win, so why would they have, and they don't know who they're impeding. They could be impeding voters for their own party. I don't think anybody has a plan to do that. The challenge, by the way, arises from the fact that we have a new law that was an attempt to reform the problems that occurred last time, and part of that law permits a challenge which in appropriate circumstances results in the casting of a provisional ballot. And I think that both sides are just attempting to get ready for the possibility of challenges either on their own side or the other side, but that doesn't mean they're going to happen. And I frankly don't expect that we're going to see much of it.
Well, I just wondered then on what you made of former President Jimmy Carter's point that things could be so bad in Florida that perhaps international observers should check the legitimacy of the vote.
I have a very high regard for President Carter, as I think most people do. I just think that his fears are unfounded and his facts to some extent were wrong. I read that he said that there had been no effort to reform the laws in Florida since 2000, and that's simply incorrect. I think you need international observers when you have a system in which you cannot have any confidence in the fact that the system itself is legitimately designed to find improprieties and correct them. We don't have a system like that in Florida. Florida has a system that's designed to ensure the integrity of the vote, and I don't believe that we need international observers, but, you know, I have no objection to it.
Okay, Mr. Richard, you might have a busy week ahead. Thanks very much for taking the time to join us. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I feel like a bit of